we're gonna blow smoke, let's save me some time now.
I mean, he's illegal. Shut it down.
Well, that's up to you because
I didn't know about the AMC Museum.
Levy Court commissioners say we're done. The next day, the big wheel start turning.
Just an update, right?
That's right on our edge.
Yeah, that should be a problem.
Yeah.
4-H I know is on there. I think the 21st.
Well, but I think they left today
Aviation
with a
one?
pretty clear understanding. But I feel bad, that it just because it's been,
We'll check it. Make sure it got put on.
Back to me and keep them off the street. Keep them out.
be a good neighbor.
There's another one out there, Kling.
Well, and
I was impressed with what they got.
Sure.
I was impressed with that.
Don't tell us recreational, but I mean,
All over Facebook, $50 ticket. I like my stuff fresh. Plus, dumb. That's why I asked you if you go to your social media.
I know we're in the country, but
We ain't that far out.
Yeah, gosh, Whip Brothers.
President Pepper, how are you this evening?
Good, sir. How are you?
Good. Vice President Angel, how are you?
7 o'clock, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
I just, all right. Everybody here?
Yeah,
Good evening. Welcome to Kent County Levy Court Committee meeting. Tonight we're meeting at the Kent County Administrative Complex at 555 Bay Road, Dover, Delaware. Levy Court Chambers, room 203. It's Tuesday, March 7th, 2023. Prior to opening the committee meetings, we'll have the county administrator explain how those that are either on the phone or join us via WebEx can do so.
thank you, Mr. President. This meeting is being offered in person at 555 Bay Road, Dover, Delaware, in room 203. We're also making it available for people to join us via the internet through WebEx. Participants can either join us by computer or by telephone throughout the course of the meeting. There will be opportunities for public comments from those attending in person or online at designated times. For those joining us by phone, press star 3, which will raise your electronic hand so our operator can identify you and bring you into the meeting. Pressing star 6 will mute and unmute your line. If you're on a computer, at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the hand and microphone icons, and we ask that you use those at the appropriate time. We also ask that all comments from our guests be preceded by stating your name and address for the record. This meeting is being recorded and will follow all the rules of procedure adopted by the Levy Court, as well as the Mason's Rules of Order. Mr. President, back to you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll call the meeting to order. I see we do have 7 county commissioners present, and the county administrator and the county attorney. So at this time, I'll turn the first committee over, the administration committee. Mr. Angel, chair. Turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. If we could have the beach people please come forward that's coming down and talk to us about the proposal. Hi, good to see you again.
How you doing?
Very good, thanks. You have quite a radio voice. I actually thought
I was just saying the same thing.
that was like a recording.
I was like, can you do the weather real quick?
That was awesome.
Wolfman Jack.
My name is Ada Poos. I'm the mayor for the town of Bowers, but I'm here to help represent the Bay Beach Association. My address is 158 Cooper Avenue, Frederica, Delaware, 19946. This is Kathy Locke.
I'm the acting chair of the Bay Beach Association. And do I give my address? 518 Bay Avenue, Slaughter Beach. And can we introduce the other
You certainly
members
may. Please do.
for the Bay Beach Association? We have with us Bob Wood, who is the mayor of the town of Slaughter Beach. Ted Becker, the previous mayor for the city of Lewis, and Tony Pratt, who is our consultant for the Bay Beach Association.
Thank you for having us back. My understanding this evening is to give you an update from a presentation that we gave in August. I do see that we have a couple new faces, so if you'd like us to review.
That would be nice.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and go through the slides with you if that's okay.
Fine.
So since August, we do have these memberships, so just to let you see that we have voting members for the Bay Beach Association. That would be the town of Bowers, City of Lewis, Slaughter Beach, and they're all incorporated, so that's why they're voting. And then the unincorporated communities will be represented by the counties. And so you'll see these, we call them associate members, who will be represented by county delegates. And we have Woodland, Pickering, Kitts, South Bowers, Prime Hook, and Brock Hill. And if you could change the slide, that would be great. Okay, so the main purpose, just to put it in simple terms for the Bay Beach Association, is to speak with a unified voice for the Bay Beach communities and towns. In the past, there may have been good legislation that each of us could have and would have wanted to take advantage of, but each of us individually just don't have a strong enough voice. So, and trust me, this is not the beginning of everyone trying to get together. I was asking Kathy earlier, because she really has been carrying this longer than I have. I jumped on just a couple of years ago. The previous mayor of Bowers was involved quite a bit, but this is, I don't know if it's 15 years in the makings, and it just surprises me that something that makes so much sense is taking so much effort and so long for it to come about. At any rate, we're here now. So in order to speak with a unified voice, what we want to do is we want to be able to partner with state agencies to work with Delaware to protect the two economic factors in Delaware. One is agriculture and one is tourism, and we believe that the Bay Beaches are very important for both of those things. We want to make sure that our communities become more resilient, the infrastructure, to protect our infrastructure, such as our drinking water, our wastewater, and then to also make sure that we are protected against storms. The beaches themselves, of course, are important by themselves for things like horseshoe crabs and things like that, but they also protect the marshes behind them and the agricultural lands behind them. So once the beaches start to erode, it will affect the marsh, and the marsh will start to affect agriculture, and it'll just keep going in. So it only makes sense to protect your first line, which is your beach. We do want to advocate on behalf of the Bay and the nearshore agricultural communities. Some of the things that we're focusing on are the sea level rise, the coastal storms, wildfires, and saltwater intrusion. So I can give you a little more detail because it all has to do with the WRDA Act that was just recently passed. So basically, what has happened, WRDA comes around, every 2 years, Kathy? I think
Yes.
it gets updated every 2 years. This most recent one, a lot of people worked very hard and a very long time to get some language for Delaware that is, it's just never been there before. I mean, it's the first thing that's ever happened where we need to take advantage of it. But just because there's language in the bill doesn't mean we're going to be able to take advantage of it. One of the things that has to happen is we need our non-federal partner to sign off on an agreement, and we're struggling with that right now. So we want to come together, and more is better, so that we can actually get the agreement signed and be able to take advantage of some language that we've never had before. You want me to go into more details? Please. Okay. All right, so Kathy, if you could help me with some of the specifics in the WRDA bill that are very good for Delaware. For example,
For the first time ever, the Bay Beach has been made a priority area for the U.S. Army for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So they now, if something begins to happen on the Bay Beach, the Corps of Engineers is now involved. It won't require an act of Congress to make emergency repairs. So,
and this is the first time for that.
and it is the first time for that. And that is what really affects the Bay Beach. It's also changed the thing that we're very excited about, the cost share, from a 65% federal cost share and a 35% state share or non-federal partner share to 90-10. That saves millions, tens of millions of dollars to the state. So it is sort of a no-brainer in my estimation that we make sure that we work closely with the Army Corps of Engineers and with DENREC to make sure that they take this opportunity that we have not had in the past, and we don't let this get past us.
Right, so just because we're authorized and we can have that help now, doesn't mean they just wait and just say, hey, maybe you want some help and hand it to you. We have to actually ask for it, and our non-federal partner has to be the one to ask for it. And that's what we're really working on very hard right now. I don't want to insult anyone, but I'm just starting to understand this, and hopefully I'll get it right. But these things are not that easy. In order to be able to access and be eligible for these funds, you have to have a project that is authorized first. So you have to go through this long process to say that, yes, you're an authorized project, so now you're eligible for funding through the 90-10. Well, we got that. We're authorized now. So, and it was huge. It took a long time. And they've tweaked the language of the original authorization, which was, I don't know, when was that? Back when I think Trump signed it.
It was at 2020. I think it was 2020. The beneficial use of dredged materials for the Delaware Bay study. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It was signed, the chief's report was signed, I believe, in December of 2020.
I believe so.
And was made law then. The changes that we're talking about, that bill was signed, the WRDA bill was signed December 23rd, 2022. And the one thing that I neglected to mention, which is critically important to the state of Delaware, is that this bill also allows the Army Corps of Engineers to come in and make repairs at no cost one time.
But isn't that the one that has the 10-year sunset?
That has a 10-year sunset.
So we know these projects can take a long time, and 10 years can fly by. So we don't want to wait 10 years. We want to get in there and take advantage of this one time where we could have 100% federal funding.
Any questions up to this point?
Just one comment. I really appreciate you adding Women Beach into that because
Absolutely. Sure thing.
Was Pickering and Kitsamic also invited to the table on this?
Oh, yeah, they're in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. All right, so I think I'm ready for the next slide if I don't have any more questions. Okay. All right, so this is what's happened since we were here in August. So in August, we did the presentation to you first. The 3 incorporated communities already said, we're in. But then in order to represent the unincorporated communities, we needed the counties to buy into it. You all bought into it, very early. But the actual thing that you approved, and I've got it on there, is that there was the establishment of a formal partnership agreement with the BBA in conjunction with Sussex County, Delaware, details of which shall be presented to Levy Court at a future date. That's what we're doing tonight. So my understanding is you guys are already on board, you approved it. We just need to work out what the formal agreement is going to look like. So as we were going through this with Sussex County, since August, the WRDA 22 bill was signed into law on December 23rd. We had a nice celebration in Bowers. I don't know if I can't remember who was there, but I'm providing some pictures because, I'm bragging a little bit on that. So we had a nice celebration for the passage. And in the end of January, Sussex County did approve and execute a formal MOU, that's what we're trying to do now, is we're the formal partnership. So through Sussex County, we did it with an MOU, and they also they signed off on the charter in February. So I believe in your package you have copies of the MOU and copies of the charter for your consideration. Do you have any questions about anything in there? All right.
Any questions?
All right, so that can go on to the next slide then, please. All right, so here are our next steps. So Kathy's already started. We're going to start quarterly planning meetings. We're going to reach out to our Delaware congressional delegates, our state legislators, you guys right here, the Army Corps, and we have had some pretty good conversations with the Army Corps already, so we're excited about that. DENREC, and then anyone else who is interested. So we did have a lot of active participation from Mike and Eric, and we're looking forward to, and Alan as well, to continuing that and for you guys to be very involved. We're very excited. We're going to do all the work. All you have to do is come and we'll present all the work to you.
There you go. That works.
Are there any questions?
Any questions?
Any questions?
No.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want, my understanding is that you guys will consider it, and then if there's anything formal happening, it happens at the business man.
That's correct.
Business meeting next. All right.
Yep,
So there's no sense in
Move
us
this
sitting
forward
here
on the
waiting?
business meeting?
Oh,
7 up.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Consent agenda.
Thank you.
Consent agenda.
Consent agenda? Mr. Scott? Consent?
It's still good news, right? Okay.
We're going to do a happy dance.
Consent?
Thank you very much.
7, okay.
Keep us in tune of what's going on. Appreciate that.
Okay, next on the agenda, Corley Tyler Enterprise. Joe Simmons? The chair. Okay.
How are you?
How we doing, Joe?
Good, good. Good evening, Mr. President and fellow Levy Court Commissioners. We're going to talk about the Tyler ERP project. So this is the third quarterly update to King County Levy Court on the status of the Munis ERP implementation project. Again, the goal is to keep leadership updated on project milestones and key deliverables. Today, we're just going to discuss and communicate some key milestones and target dates, inform Levy Court on our progress, and update you on any future major decision points that we may have coming up. Okay. Just a reminder for key points. The Munis ERP project module is a phasing approach for finance, tax billing, sewer billing, HCM, which is HR, and civil service. We're going to go over what has been done so far and what's next. We're still on target for our go-live date of July 1st, 2023. So some of the key areas, major areas of data conversion, the chart of accounts is 100% complete and in production. Our vendor master file is 100% complete. We're in the process of working on our geohistory accounts, which is 75% complete. Our AP check and invoice files are 25% complete. And the payroll journal entry file is 100% complete. So we're making good progress on our going through our data in our files and getting them ready to for the new system. So that's ongoing progress. What has been done on the project side, configuration sessions with Tyler Tech implementation lead has been done. We started the solution configuration tasks and other defined system roles and workflows, which we're in the process of completing over the next 2 weeks. And we have created all the user accounts and verified that all the users that now have access to the S100 at least have access to the new system. They should have got verification that they can get in and at least get to the main menu for view only. So to make sure we have no issues as far as technical issues as far as them connecting to the new system. So that's complete throughout the whole county. The next steps, again, is to complete the configuration tasks and the system rollout of the workflows, perform user acceptance testing, coordinate the end users training and rollout task, complete the data conversion for the target data, as I mentioned above, and then also creating and detailing our go-live training plan between the IT department, finance, and kind of come up with a solid game plan. One of the things that was communicated to me by Levy Court leadership is that they wanted to have a solid go-live training program that also took in count of our workforce schedule hours. So they didn't want to wait to us for the last minute, the last week in June, and kind of like roll us out without giving the department heads and employees enough time to get acclimated to the new system. And I think my staff on both the financial IT department doing a good job of realizing that, you know, this is a major change for the county, going from a green screen as 400 to an online system. What might look a little different, more web-based. So we realize that there is going to be a little bit of more challenge than just training somebody on a new system that's similar. So we're doing as much as we can to mitigate that, and understanding that we have some, you know, people that's been using the green screen for years, and that's what they're used to. And it's going to take them some time to get acclimated to the new system. But I think once they do, they will be very, very pleased about the graphical interface, things to be able to do. That's okay. Oh, well, down the bottom. Go back one. Yeah. So go back to, you know, every project has its ebbs and flows, and, you know, has its issues to work out. Every project manager tries to identify and manage risk. There's no different in this project. Again, having internal resources, having the right people available at the right time. Some of our, you know, have smaller staffs, or staffs have dual roles. So always keep an eye on having enough availability. And so far, so good. We definitely managing that, Susan and I, to make sure that, you know, we have enough staffing. Okay. Again, the ERP project is a large, multi-year, multi-million-dollar, complex project. It has a lot of interdependencies about tax billing, imports from our CAMA system, property search website. So there's a lot of moving parts as we go down this road that we got to kind of manage to make sure that we hit our target dates, especially as it come time for the new budget year, tax billing, and with the assessment project. So a lot of moving parts there. The last risk I'm gonna talk about is kind of a newer risk that we find out. Tyler Resources, our implementation specialist that was assigned to our project, Sarah O'Donnell. We was notified a couple of weeks ago that she has got a promotion, and she's moving to a project manager into a different region, effective was March 1st. So this is the person that kind of took us through the project up until where we're at now. We've really has to understand is that a project this size and scope, you kind of build a relationship. They kind of learn our business, and they kind of learn like what aspect we're looking at, how we want to configure the system. And that's definitely something that a risk for us. We haven't been signed a new implementation specialist yet. They have a person that they think that's going to be working with us, but there's nothing confirmed at this date, and that is a huge risk. And the risk is that we might have to, if it takes a week or two or a month for that person to get acclimated to, a smooth transition from Sarah to this new person, that might set us back. Hopefully it doesn't. Talking with their project manager, Aaron, that we felt like we're at a good spot. Getting our chart of accounts into production and done, it was huge. It's just going to follow up all the configuration of how we want the system to operate that may impact us going forward. So we have to manage this, keep an eye on it, and really bring the message to Tyler that, we have to understand and make sure that we're comfortable with this new resource. Like you said, she has to fit us because it's more, again, more of a building relationships. And that was done, you know, with the past implementation specialists over the last 6-8 months. So,
Any questions up to this point? Mr. President?
So if everything goes smoothly, and I would imagine you'll stay on course, but should this be a glitch in the system here, we're switching up your implementation specialist, it could throw us off.
correct.
So I guess we have no clue how long it would throw us off then. It
No,
depends on what the glitch is, I
yeah,
guess.
depends on what the glitch is. And I think, you know, in any project you work and you start working with somebody for a long period of time, you know, there's definitely personality issues, there's communication issues, it can be any mobile factors that can come up. They can be, you know, between our old implementation specialist and new one, maybe the knowledge level. Because like, again, you know, did they have the same tenure at Tyler? You know, we're not getting a fresh person that just, you know, hasn't implemented the financial module before. So, you know, it's something we just got to keep an eye on. It's nothing rising to the level now I can say it definitely will impact us. I just want to bring it up and make sure that everybody is well aware of that. And we just got to work through that.
So in the contract, are there any penalties if this does throw us off track to Tyler?
I don't think, but we have to make sure that we escalate the risk to the Tyler project director.
Right.
What are the consequences of if things go south? So we need to just follow up with them. We have to schedule, you know.
Right.
The good thing about person that they're recommending, I know her.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have worked with her in my previous project. She's an experienced person. And what I understood from the Tyler project manager that they're going to, the current consultant, Sarah, will transit all her knowledge to her. But Martha, I know personally to her, her name is Martha. She should be okay with this project, but like Joe says, she doesn't know Kane County business.
Right,
so that's a risk we're going to have to manage.
Got a learning curve there.
And if we think there is a risk to the go live, we're going to have to escalate all to the Tyler executive level. So, Matt, you want to say?
No, he would, just to follow up with President Pepper's question, there is caveats in the contract that, you know, sign-off points that we have to sign off that we got to a certain stage of the project before things progress as far as the payment scale. And obviously, we don't pay for any training or any kind of consultation that we don't take advantage of because that's more of a time and materials. The only thing that we're locked into paying is our subscription fee, and that's a quarterly payment.
One thing also I think we should mention is the person that's being replaced, their boss is consistent. So that person's ultimately still responsible for the performance of the people on their team. So we need to continue to work at that level to make sure that we're getting everything we need. If we're unsatisfied with the person at the level below that, we need to work with that person to get the lower level person replaced.
Gotcha.
So we need to continue to manage aggressively that way.
So this no way impedes us moving forth on the timeline then? It's going to keep the timeline the same?
Yes.
Okay.
That is our intention, yes.
Correct. Our intention to keep the timeline the same, July 1st.
And if not,
This is
what?
Well, just like you say, if Tyler resource somehow, then we're going to have to escalate to the director. And they may have to supply additional resource to, you know, bring that person to the speed or help get extra help here. So.
I'm sorry, Joe. Do you want to introduce your two?
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
I thought you were, I have with me is Matt Payne. He's a manager at CAI, and Camille Schiff is a co-project manager for CAI, has a lot of experience in ERP implementations at the state and for Newcastle County.
I'll get it on record.
Okay.
Yeah, this is
questions?
This is a pretty critical juncture in that July 1st is the beginning of the fiscal year. Finance is up first, so there's not a lot of margin for error. This is a Houston, we have a problem kind of a window that we have because we have 1 quarter left to do the finance integration, which is that's a big ask for Susan and her team. So it's going to be important that we hit all of the milestones up to that, because if we're not ready on July 1st, the challenge is financial penalties wouldn't make any difference. We would just be dead in the water with our finance system. So we have the ish factor, is Susan happy? So I guess she's in the back, so I didn't know if she wanted to weigh in on anything related to this.
So far, for me, it's really key, and Tyler said for us for this last quarter. Everything else I feel is lining up very well.
Any further questions? Continue, sir.
Okay. All right, again, this is a phase project for the ERP system. And like I said, it's the enterprise-wide, county-wide system. And so far, we've mainly been talking about our finance module. So our finance module is going in first, followed by the tax billing, followed by utility billing, followed by HR, and as of now, the civil service. There may be some modifications to the schedule as we get further into the modules. So below what I have is just the bubbles of the kickoff and the expected go-live date for each individual module. As you can tell, the financial go-live again July 1st, 2023. We just kicked off our tax billing. Kickoff was a couple of weeks ago in February. And you might assume, why are we starting tax billing before we go live on finance? Well, it's a rolling type of implementation. So the first phase is what they call solution orientation, which you're learning the system. So you're not really doing a lot of work as far as configuration or data. And then the second phase is your solution, your current state, future state analysis, where you take what you learn and you kind of write down how you want the system to work. And then in the third phase of this implementation is you go and take your future state analysis and then you configure the system, and then followed by user assessment testing, training, and then rollout. So if you want to say it's a slow ramp up. So by the time we get the financial module implemented, then we'll probably start in the earnest of the tax billing module. So what they're doing with the tax billing module now is basically just learning the system, understanding what the capabilities are. And some of these teams we have some cross-lap in resources, but again, some of the teams are, working on the finance module or separate than working on the tax billing module. Like for instance, in IT, we have Donna Barnes working on tax and Kevin Scott and Marissa working on finance. So there is, there may be some overlap in other departments, but there is some synergies as far as like kind of starting off now, because different people can be working on different things as we move forward. So that's why the tax kickoff is now. And again, tax is estimated to go live in July 2024. And we have ACM go live or kickoff in September of this year. Again, a slow ramp up, a lot of understanding of what we're doing today and how we want the system to work. And that go live is scheduled for September 24th, 2024. So that's kind of the phasings. Like I said, they can be adjusted as we see fit, tweaked a little bit here and there, but that's the overall. And the overall schedule of the project is supposed to be ending in December 2025. So, in the status of our overall project, we're probably about 20% done. The overall project, we're in the 65% done as far as the finance module. So that's how the status is going between each project. So we are progressing it on as scheduled. Just want to review again, what we've done and what we're doing now and, what's coming up. The discovery sessions with Tyler power users, we're done for the last 7 sessions. Solution orientation is done. We've done a current and future state analysis for the finance module. We did our chart of account conversion, the vendor master conversion. That's all behind us and done. And what we're working on now is for the finance modules is, again, completing the system configuration, power user training and in practice. And in a billing module, we had a kickoff meeting and we're just doing project planning right about now. Okay. And what's coming up is on a financial module, end user testing, user acceptance testing in the future, and the power user training. In the tax module, again, solution orientation and current and future state analysis. And then for even going all the way up to the HR module, we just start looking at project data staging. And what that is that without even starting the project, we're going through on our end and seeing what needs to be cleaned up, what needs to be, data needs to be refreshed, to make sure we identify all the data points that we have them documented for tables and fields and what they mean, and just kind of like just getting ready, using our filler time and spare time to start working on the things on our end that we know you probably have to work on, or at least go back and kind of like update or revisit things on our side to be ready when September does come around. So that's all I have. It's we'll do these, continue with these quarterly updates. As we come closer to go live, we probably have update, have a no-go decision, definitely with me and Susan. A drop dead date and update Levy Court right before we go to a decision that we're going live on July 1. So,
Any questions for Mr. Simmons?
Nope.
Thank you, sir, for the FYI.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Any public comments on these 2 items we spoke on tonight on my committee? Any public comments? Anybody online, Mark?
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to make comments on either of the previous 2 items, please indicate by raising your electronic hand at this time. I see no hands raised at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is Public Works Committee. Commissioner Hertz, Chair. Turn those 2 items over to you, sir.
All right, I'd like to bring Miss Diana Galt down to discuss the long-range wastewater master plan and have public participation.
Good evening, Commissioners. So we've been talking about the long-range wastewater master plan. It's an update of our plan to look at the wastewater needs for the next 20 years. So where we are in the process is that we've been to Sewer Advisory Board in January. We're looking at taking a draft to them in April. And we're looking at, between April and May, having some public participation. What we're looking at doing is having a ribbon on the front page of the website where they'd be able to click on that ribbon and to get to links that would allow them to access the report, and links that would give them a phone number for KCI. KCI is our consultant. They're located here in Dover, and we'd also have a phone number there. So this is similar to what we did to the US 13 slip lining project. So the questions and comments are being fielded by KCI. So when commissioners get those questions, rather than sending them back to staff, we're getting consistent answers from KCI, and we're trying to take all those comments and incorporate them and to see where it fits into the report that we have. So this one's a pretty simple one. It's an informational item. I don't know if you all have any questions.
Just thinking that
We're going to do a press release as well?
Yes. So the plan is to come back for a workshop with the commissioners in late May. We've been talking about contingency items, risk items, that might get pushed off to June, but my belief is that we'll be able to adopt this plan hopefully in August, depending on the comments.
Okay, anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Correction Commissioner Angel.
Thank you very much. On the long-range plan, of my 19 years of serving now, we're talking about 20 years down the future on what we're working at. And of course, you know what I'm going to be saying. I've been trying to push for an extra basin in case something happens, but also looking at another wastewater. I know it's an expensive system. When are we going to at least start talking about it? Not planning one, but at least start the discussion.
So I believe that when we're here with you all in May, we'll have a presentation by KCI, whether that's at committee or we decide to have a workshop so that we can spend more time on the item. That would be the time to bring up those questions. But right now, the preliminary results of the plan have us investing our money in the treatment plant that we have. That does not mean that there aren't other things that we might need to do, and it'll be open to discussion. So we will have the advice of, we'll also have KCI with us. So I hope if you have any questions that you would like to ask in advance, that puts us on notice so that we can make sure we bring the answers with us that night. And then there's a piece that you have to understand too, is there's only so much we could cover in the scope of the plan. There are recommendations coming out of the report where we'll have to study different things. For example, that certain pump stations might need to be studied further. If you all wish to look at more items with a potential future treatment plant, that might be something beyond the scope of the long-range wastewater master plan that we have. But most certainly ask your questions that evening so that we, and so that the commissioners can set the direction for the county.
I know that the first 9 years of me being on Levy Court, we went through redistricting and reapportionment for our districts. We went to 161,000 people. In these last 10 years, now we're up to 185,000. So if you start looking at another 20 years out, it's 2 more reapportionments. What's it going to be? Is it going to be around 225,000, 250,000? Are we going to be able to continue to go down that path?
The population was part of the development of the flow projections. So we'll be bringing those numbers with you tonight, that night that we're doing that workshop. So that the belief is that the best investment is in the plant that we have. Again, the direction and what we look at can be set as we explore what the report says.
Well, I understand the best investment. I'm just outside the box thinker, looking down the road. I usually get myself in trouble because I do that. So that's why I always ask those questions. But thank you.
You're welcome.
Is it possible for KCI to give us a possible estimated when they think we may need a new treatment plant? Is it like 2030, 2040, 2050? Is it possible for them to give us such a forecast?
The problem with that is the changes in population growth. So we're basing it on what we've seen as the history and partly on what the comp plan has suggested will happen. So the answer with that is we could do more up-to-date long-range forecasting, update the plan maybe every 7 years or 10 years so that we can see if that's coming. But right now, our flows at the plant are down. That doesn't mean that we haven't had wet years where the flows are higher. It's something that's very complex and hard to predict. So that's best explored in a night where I'm prepared for that topic. So we have that coming, and I'm hoping that I'm back in May so that we can discuss that fully.
Okay. One last thing. What do you say we're running right now? Average 60%?
Yes, 12 to 14 million gallons a day, and we're designed for 20 million gallons a day.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners? Go ahead, Commissioner Pepper.
Yeah, our forefathers here in Levy Court actually were thinking ahead back in I believe it's in the early 80s, when they used federal funds to purchase the Gold Dinger farm between Cheswold and Smyrna, in case we would ever need a second plant. It runs parallel to the Lipstick River, where we could put our discharge into to go out to the bay. So we do have land. I don't, of course, it's going to be a hard sell to the people who live around there now to put a plant there. But we do have the land and the setup as far as having the river there to be able to build another plant. So it's not something like we got to look for land and that's undeveloped. We have that land that we rent out for farming.
I got the perfect sell for that. Just tell them it's either solar or a treatment plant, and we'll get the treatment plant.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
So it also depends on with DENREC. So the last treatment plant that was permitted in Delaware, my belief, is the Middletown Odessa Townsend facility, which was a spray irrigation facility. So if you're going to have spray irrigation rather than stream disposal, you're going to need a lot of land to put that on. So it also depends what size plant are you looking at building. Are we looking at duplicating what we have? Are we looking at a side stream flow where we're taking half or a quarter of the flow? So there's a lot of different factors that would go into that, and whether or not that might be sufficient land. And when you look at spray irrigation, then you also have buffers. And I know I tend to be very technical, and I'm sorry, then I go into the details, but it's a very complex issue, so that it is something that we can look at. That's the best I can say.
Commissioner Scott?
Diana, at the existing plant now, do we have room for expansion there still?
Yes.
Any other questions? Commissioner Sweeney?
Thanks, sir. So, just like Commissioner Hurst, don't be afraid to look out 50 years. Don't be afraid to ask KCI to say, when will we have to use the Gold Digger Farm for a new plant?
We could project out based on the numbers that they have.
I mean, we have a basis of what the population is growing in Kent County, in southern Newcastle County. We know what it's been doing for the last 20 years.
I can most definitely bring you that number. The catch is, if we plan out that far, something most definitely will happen that it'll either be higher or lower somewhere in between.
I'm asking you to plan out that far.
Okay.
That's not a plan when you do out that far.
Okay.
So I'm not going to be here 30 years from now or 50 years from now and say, Diana, you said we were going to have a plant in Smyrna by 2070, and we don't, and I'm holding you to it. That's not what this is about.
And so when the past plan was looked at by KCI, and we looked at the numbers that were projected in that plan that was revised last in 2002, the numbers were conservative, and we did not reach the numbers they predicted, but it most certainly gave us points where we needed to make improvements in the plant.
Absolutely. And in 2002, not a single person sitting here was here then. So just, well.
Thanks.
7 old guys, old people.
Hey, for yourself.
I did. Including me. Don't be afraid to think out that far.
Don't be afraid to call us old.
That's a whole nother problem. We're not going to go there. So with that, are there any other questions?
I'm good. Any other commissioners? Any public comments or questions? That's it. Thank you very much.
That's set number 2.
Huh?
Something else.
One more item.
Yeah, but
The next one.
the ordinance, yeah. Okay. Number 2, ordinance LC 2302, an ordinance amending Kent County Code, Volume 1, Chapter 180 by revising Article 1, definitions, 180-05, definitions to add a definition by revising Article 3, regulations of sewer use, 180-10B, use of public sewers, discharge and pretreatment prohibitations, to amend the language by revising Article 3, regulations of sewer use, 180-12 industrial wastewater discharge permits to modify references from limits to loadings and to delete names of specific metals, and by revising 180 Attachment 1 to rename the title of Table 180-3-1 from Maximum Allowable Industrial Limits to Maximum Allowable Industrial Loadings, and to replace Table 180-3-1 in its entirety to show revised parameters and loadings. Any questions from the commissioners?
I missed part of that. Can you read that again?
And you're lucky I got through it that time.
Can I give a quick summary?
Yeah, I want to know why we're doing this.
Okay, so the local limits evaluation is a project that was initiated because it was required in our plant's permit. NPDES stands for National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. That's basically our permit that allows discharge to the Murdoch-Hill River. We also have another permit that's called the DRBC docket. They're kind of tied together, but they don't always have exactly the same parameters. So the evaluation was required, and we have what's called an industrial pretreatment program. And what we're trying to do with the program and with having these limits or maximum industrial loadings is protect the plant. So EPA requires that significant users that we have loadings in place or limits, they used to be just called limits in place, that are issued in permits to our significant industrial users. So that's kind of the why. And what we did in 2018, and this is going back a while, we had a workshop with the industries. And you're going to say, well, Diana, why is it taking so long? Well, we submitted what was called a headworks analysis to EPA after doing sampling. And that happened right before COVID in February of 2020. So EPA was reviewing it. We had contact with them in 2021, and EPA provided a comment letter in March of 2022. So this has taken a long time to get through EPA. So, but basically, when EPA came out with their comments and accepted our report, they said we have 4 months to adopt the maximum allowable industrial loadings. Now, we're here tonight with some ordinance changes. EPA has also reviewed our industrial pretreatment program. They did an audit. There's probably going to be some more code changes coming to make sure we're up to date. But tonight we're focusing on this piece of it, which again, we have 4 months to adopt. And EPA's letter was dated December 2nd, 2022. Now, we were here, we were going to be introducing this, we introduced it last Tuesday. We had planned to introduce it the month before. We were having some discussions about the wording of the ordinance.
So, Diane, is it fair that the county is doing this because we were told we have to do it?
Correct.
Okay.
That's the short version.
Commissioner Sweeney?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, just saying the EPA is telling us to do it is good enough, but in your letter, in your cover letter, it's EPA is still using limits, not loadings.
Well, so they call it a maximum allowable industrial loading, and what we call it in general is limits that show up in the industry permits. And they're called,
but there's no real difference. I mean, it's not like by changing it to loading, we get another 30%.
What's different is that we're now using pounds per day.
Okay.
Where before we were using concentrations.
Gotcha. Okay.
Or we might have been using pounds per day, but we're now getting different parameters.
Milligrams per liter or whatever. Okay.
The numbers are changing in the table.
Okay.
And there's some additional different parameters in the table. We're also adding a definition so we have it to match what's in the table so we can explain what that parameter is. We're also adding a limit for petroleum and mineral fats, oil and grease, which is a limit of 100 milligrams per liter. That's going in the code, and it is not pound-based. So, but basically, I'm sorry, I'm saying a lot of ums tonight. But basically, we've responded back to EPA. We've got our final limits, local limits report. And we have an acceptance letter from EPA from December, and we're moving forward with the ordinance that's required. Now, the additional piece that I want to let you know, and I'm going to read this from EPA, and I'm going to paraphrase it some. Because some of the proposed local limits are less stringent than currently approved local limits, and it's chromium, copper, lead, mercury, and nickel, the revision to the limits is considered a substantial program modification. As such, EPA is going to issue a public notice providing for a period of not less than 30 days of comment, during which interested persons may submit their written views on the substantial program modification. So the metals are becoming less stringent, the number is moving up. So we made it match the circumstances of our testing and our report, and EPA considered that a substantial change. So if you look at the date on the ordinance for when it will be effective, we incorporated that piece of the 30-day comments into the effective date on the ordinance. The public hearing for this is set for the 14th. Andy will be taking this item forward.
He looks thrilled.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Any public comments?
We gotta move for introduction, don't we?
To a business meeting?
Well, it's introduction and under new business at a business meeting, but do we have a date for that, Lori?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Has it been introduced?
It's already been introduced.
Has been introduced.
It has been introduced. It's also been by Sewer Advisory Board.
Okay.
And Sewer Advisory Board supported the adoption of the ordinance and recommends its adoption as well as staff.
This was information.
So when the public hearing gets here, you all have at least heard this once before,
Right.
Do we know when the public hearing is?
the 14th.
14th? Oh, that's right. Gotcha.
Mark, is there anybody online?
If there's anyone that's joining us online that would like to comment on either of these two previous items, please indicate by raising your electronic hand at this time. I see no hands raised at this time, Mr. Chair.
All right, with no comments, I'd like to move this to new business, put it on the agenda.
It's already on the 14th.
It's already on for the 14th.
It's already on for the 14th. Yeah,
All right.
This is just information tonight.
yeah, so you're good.
Okay.
Well, good, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is Planning Services Committee. Commissioner Maston's chair. You have a ordinance on swimming pool barriers, looks like.
Ms. Kiefer?
Good evening, Commissioners. Before you tonight for discussion is ordinance LC 2306 regarding swimming pool barriers. The building code currently allows for a residential swimming pool in grounds that in lieu of the required fencing, a property owner can use an automatic pool cover, meeting a very specific standard. It's been in the code at least since 2006. We haven't seen it done often. It's been done a few times. They are tremendously expensive, so it's not a first choice. Commissioner Hertz had expressed some concern about the use of the automatic pool cover in lieu of fencing and had simply asked for an ordinance to be brought forward for consideration, and Commissioner Maston agreed. So that's what's before you. It's simply an ordinance that would eliminate that exemption. In that case, in all cases, for an in-ground swimming pool, a fence would be required. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner comments? President Pepper?
There are a lot of in-ground pools in King County.
Mm-hmm.
What percentage would you say have the automatic covers in lieu of fencing?
It's got to be under 5%.
That's what I was saying. I don't personally know of any.
We found a couple of permits when we did a quick search.
All right.
Just a few.
Okay, so, and the problem I would see with automatic covers is they may not work all the time and they have moving parts, or they may be left open by mistake. So I think that fence is there all the time, so I think that's the issue. So I'd have the same problem, same issue too. So.
Commissioner Sweeney?
Thank you, ma'am. Are automatic covers not safe? Are they just, they're not, obviously they're not the pool cover like in,
No, they are not your typical pool cover. They meet a very specific standard. They are automatic. They also contain a locking mechanism, so you can take the key out, nobody has access to it.
but we're going to eliminate them as an option for a fence that can be easily jumped over.
That
Or
is for
gate
discussion
left
by the
open,
Levy
or-
Court this evening.
Okay.
Commissioner or Vice President Angel?
Well, fences aren't that easy to jump over when they're over 4 foot. So, I mean, you can still get over. You can get over anything. Get over 6 foot too.
They want to get in the pool, they're going to.
I know my pool cover that I have for my in-ground pool will hold an elephant. Need extra for it because of the, however, water seeps up through it, you can still drown, especially if it's a small child that can't get out because of the weight. So that's my concern.
Commissioner Hall?
Are we going to grandfather for the properties that have an in-ground pool with an automatic cover? Are we grandfathering them, or would this then require them to install a fence after they paid for the automatic cover?
This would impact only new permits. It would not impact anybody we've already issued a permit for.
Commissioner Hertz?
Yeah, this was brought to me by several people that install pools and stuff for the safety factor. And one of the things of the automatic pool cover is the only way they work is with the human factor. And the human factor is sometimes they'll be out there swimming, they'll go in, I'll be back later. It only takes a second for a kid to walk up that pool, fall in, and drown. And as Commissioner Sweeney said, a fence you could jump over. No toddler's going to jump over a fence. No, hopefully no 2-3-year-old's going to jump over a fence. So it's an added layer of protection, and I don't think it's, if you got the money to put a pool in, you got the money to put the fence in.
Any other commissioner comments? Show of hands to move it forward to the business.
Okay, thank
Stepping
you.
up. Any public comments?
Hi, my name is John Rigby. I'm a local pool service company owner. I'm also a teacher, and I ran the aquatics program for Cesar Rodney for many years. I brought this forward to Commissioner Hertz and expressed my concern. I work, of course, in the pool industry, and I also work with children, and I know, as some of you mentioned, how quickly something can happen. Some of the questions that were raised with fence and with the differences between the two, the auto cover is, again, manually opened, closed. We start seeing issues, and I've seen it several times as a business provider, where in the peak of the summer, pools get hot, people want them left open because those covers retain the heat. They're supposed to be locked with a door over top, but a lot of times the keys get lost or they're just left unlocked all the time. And again, the cover stays open, it's closed. It's a very expensive piece of equipment, so in a lot of cases, the customer will not want to open and close it every single time they want to swim. We're talking over $20,000 in a motor here, so they don't want to use it every time. And the fence cannot be removed. It provides an additional layer of safety. Anybody in the pool industry, in the swimming industry will talk about levels of protection, different levels of barriers. I think within that code, we talk about the fence, and we have all these guidelines for the fence. They can't have gaps, openings, indentations that allow a child to squeeze through. They can't be a certain height off the ground. Even the removable mesh fences cannot be more than 20 inches from the pool's edge for fear that a small child or an elderly person will break through and fall into the pool. Now that's a mesh fence. That's almost the same material that these safety covers are. And we require them to be 20 inches from the water in case they are penetrated and someone goes underneath. So I think it's very important that we require fences around pools. And in most cases, people do opt to do both. I think it's very seldom that I've seen only a auto cover. People are moving towards both, but yeah, usually we want multiple layers of protection. And it's a small thing to change. Across the country, a lot of pool companies are moving forward to push for this to be removed, as we're starting to realize that we need to protect our children a little bit better. And as the covers become, the cost starting to come down, it's going to become more prevalent. And I know in this area, the covers are becoming more prevalent as we now have a few companies that do install them. They're a little more affordable than they used to be. And I think we need to take every chance, or take every precaution we can to protect the children and the homeowner as well, right? If the kid drowns on that property, you know, homeowner is ultimately liable. So thank you very much.
Mr. Rigby, real
Yes.
quick. So the insurance companies don't require fences around pools for liability reasons?
Generally, they do, yes, right. So that would be, I guess, case by case, depending on the insurance company. But generally, yes, they do. And that's why we usually see both, yes.
Are we eliminating the opportunity for both in this?
No, we're just eliminating the exemption.
Exception. So instead of one or the other, you have to have a...
You have to at least have a fence.
Have a
If you
fence.
want to put a different kind of cover on, that's your choice.
Okay. All right, that's fine.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Kennedy, anyone on the line?
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak on this item, please indicate by raising your electronic hand at this time. I see no hands at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. We'll move on to the Administration Committee. Commissioner Angel's chair. Turn it over to you, sir. You have one item there.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Decker, you're up, sir. I'm up. Boy. Mr. Quayle, care of it.
Mr. Quayle.
Thank you, Commissioner Angel. I do have a couple of topics I'm trying to wrap up from my very short tenure as a former acting county administrator now. And one of those is the ARPA discussion from last week. As you recall, you had a very extensive presentation by Tetra Tech, and we laid out the various potential allocations, which now need to be crafted into a formal motion, which we plan to bring to Levy Court next week. So here's your last chance before we draft the motion to make adjustments to those allocations. As you recall, the last $4 million in the revenue loss would go to a couple of public safety projects. And in the general fund, we included the premium pay. We're combining, really no more allocation, but we're combining the original nonprofits program and the civic organization into about $2 million for a new program there, which has a smaller maximum award and a minimum award of, it says 100, but I think you agreed to 1,000 last week. Also about $1 million for affordable housing, including CDBG program. Commissioner Masson, I believe you asked for that. And job training, which is really for the paramedic training program the county has, which is about almost $300,000. Ultimately, commissioners will get a very specific plan after you approve these allocations next week, and staff will be back to present to the commissioners exactly the program on how they'll be spent. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions?
Are we going to have an exact number on the premium pay for the employees that weren't covered under the premium pay? Are we going to have the exact number?
You will not next week, but ultimately you will. We have started the process of reviewing timesheets, and once that's all ready to go, we're going to bring to you the exact program. Much of it's already included in this memo, but we'll have the exact details
and be able to show you exactly what it'll cost. I'm anticipating it will be lower than the 479,000 we're estimating. And of course, those funds can go to these other projects, perhaps the new paramedic station, which is a little off.
Thank you. Sweeney.
Thank you, sir. So once we agree to this next week in business, is the website application for nonprofits ready to go live?
No. That is going to take a couple of months. I think Gina mentioned that last week.
Yeah.
So it'll be a couple of months for them to bring that up, and then there'll be a 3-month application process. Then it'll be ready to go.
Okay, thanks.
Any further discussion? I just wanted to bring up, I know afterwards, last week we had a discussion. Afterwards, I did talk to Gina, and I was still asking about Dover Downs with them moving. And they said that they've already missed it because of tourism. Well, this happened after tourism, we closed it. So I never got a call back, so I'm not sure what happened, if it was even looked at again, as well as the FOP, which did they qualify for a different thing under a nonprofit, since they can't do a 501(c) or a 501(19). So I never heard back. So I just want to say I still like to see them helped because they were hurt. So, and with, like I said, Dover Downs being our economic driver first for tourism, we need to make sure we have jobs and people are employed. And we already lost one race. We don't want to lose another race. So we want to make sure that we get people still coming here to keep our taxes low and have and reap our rewards what we offer in our area. So I just wanted to make sure that that's okay still to be looked at. Hope we can get an answer by Tuesday.
So Commissioner Angel, I'm sure you won't get an answer to those questions specifically, but I understand Gina will be calling you about your inquiries. There are a couple of issues, and I thought they were addressed last week. One related to the Dover Motorsports is that they have advanced very far along. And if you may recall, some of the challenges we've had with our CCI allocation, which is for construction and additions, is that you have to follow these very specific federal rules, which require bidding and the like. And if you don't follow those rules, you may not qualify. And ultimately, if Levy Court were to choose to make an allocation there, there'd be a clawback, meaning that the county may have to reimburse the federal government for that payment. So she is going to get back to you. We talked about it today in our call. So you will get some answer on that. FOP Lodge just does not qualify for ARPA funds. She was going to try to give you some additional potential grant funders for that program, but it does not qualify for ARPA.
I knew that. I just said, I asked her to look at what else we could do. So I understood that. The other thing is too, I think Ms. Masson had brought forth about taking some of the money for housing and giving it to.
But I think he mentioned that in his conversation.
I missed that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So in the motion that will be prepared for
speak
you,
up, Alan.
Yes. The affordable housing improvement and including what it was written here, included DSHA, which specifically mentioned last week, but also has the CDBG component. Ultimately, Levy Court will decide how that $1 million, who gets it, and everything. So that will come back. Really, you're just doing allocations of funding in 2 buckets. The very specifics will be reviewed and approved by Levy Court later.
Okay. You're fine then. Okay.
I'm fine.
Any further questions?
Just on the conservation district issue, because there was communication with the district subsequent to the meeting, and there was I believe it was the $2 million request. So I didn't know if there was any, I've to follow up to get a better sense of what the conservation district's concerns are. I have a meeting scheduled for Friday, but I didn't know if you had any thoughts that you would want me to bring into that discussion.
I think the major concern with that was, some of the commissioners had was, can they meet the obligation of have this money spent before the end of the program's up, our program's up. So I think that was the main concern.
Mm-hmm.
All right, move it forward to the business meeting. Mr. Scott?
No.
7 up.
Commissioners?
Thanks, Alan.
Anybody online, Mark?
No, yeah.
If there's anyone online who would wish to comment on this item, please indicate by raising your electronic hand at this time. If you're joining us by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *3. I see no hands raised at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. President, back to you. Oops, excuse me, public comments. Any public comments on this item? Any public comments? Now back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I'll ask the attorney, do we have a need for executive session this evening?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right, thank you. With that being said, at this time, we will adjourn the committee meetings, and we'll proceed to the workshops on the public safety and the sewer fund. We have reversed the presentations. The sewer fund will go first, and then followed by the public safety, and we will be adjourning to the caucus room for that. So if everyone can pack up and move to the caucus room, we'll get started on that.
Those people going in the caucus room?
Don't know.
No. We're gonna move out here.
I don't know, we'll see.
You're still hot.
I just wanted to hear that pretty voice of yours. So we can...
I don't.
Tastes better than Wolfman Jack and Jerry Blatt.
chance of that. Never chance of that.
want to see it?
This is the clicker to go forward and back. You can look at me.
This big one goes forward, right, Mark?
They're characters. What? Well.
Here's Jeff, there's Mark. I think we need to build into the
Alan,
budget that when we do the
You
budget.
take one
we
of
have
each of these and pass it around.
Yeah.
Didn't even get lunch.
Well, that's more for later on. You guys can look at it.
Break for 3 hours.
Had water,
please. I did too.
There's just no way for,
That damn county administrator, man, he's hard. You know? I saw that schedule. I said, man, 2.5 hours, no bathroom break. Shit.
We're trying to save money on sewer.
Yeah, because there you go, Jody.
Those hauler rates, those district rates, it's killing us. Hey, Chief.
Good evening. You don't want to get ready to say good morning. We're not quite there yet.
We can be.
Yeah. Well, I hope not, but we'll see how it goes. So y'all ready? Just let me know.
Go for it.
Go for it. Okay. Well, good evening, and I'd like to thank our staff from Public Safety, a good contingency of them, for being here tonight, because this is a topic that we've discussed over the years, and as the commissioners will recall, typically at a retreat, I would cover a whole wide range of aspects of the department, but we decided to limit it to recruitment and retention for public safety, which seems to be a challenge for us more and more as we emerge down the line. So I do have a PowerPoint, and the handouts that I distributed, one of them is been asked to produce some comparative data, and that was actually done by one of our paramedics, Greg Schultheis, and the other one is a proposed pay scale that it's more for your reading later. You don't have to read it now, but it'll be explained in the PowerPoint, hopefully, and just stop me for any questions. So I must not be doing this right. Mark, center button, right? Now, oops, there we go. So our paramedics, these are some of our paramedics, and I've been actually the paramedic chief since about, I guess, 95 or 96, somewhere in there, and I can count the times on one hand when we've been fully staffed. And we're no different than the other counties. They've had the same challenges over the years. However, we're a little more challenged now than we have been in the past, which seems to be a trend and not an isolated sentinel event. Those are more paramedics, and those are our vacancies. They're at the bottom of the screen. And so our dispatchers, and we've included our dispatchers as well, because they have an equal interest in what we're discussing tonight. And while we're fully staffed in dispatchers, the state police are not. And they're in the same building. They've been challenged with hiring. And the other point to note with the dispatchers is that years ago, we used to get a ton of applications when we had an opening. We're not getting that anymore, not near what we got in the past. So the trend away from public safety for especially young folks is just not there. So we have to attract them in some manner. So I want to discuss recruitment first, and I think staff really does a great job with recruitment. We use the conventional methods, bulletin boards, electronic bulletin boards, job fairs. And what I mean by current personnel, some of our folks come from other states, and they put feelers out where they're from, and we end up attracting paramedics from that are known to some of our own paramedics. And of course, the flyer there on the right is what we use. It's one of our recruiting flyers, and that was put together by the paramedics as well. So one of the things we've done to attract, as the commissioners know, to attract paramedics is to pay them like you would a police officer, pay them to go to the academy, pay them a salary, pay for their tuition, and then bring them back. And we do that through Good Fellowship. And I like our arrangement with Good Fellowship. It's an excellent school. It's about a year long. And the way they structure that school, and I probably have mentioned this in the past, but they have some sort of an articulation agreement with Westchester University. They're practically at an associate's degree level when they finish their school, which is really, really good. But we like it because we're able to select their paramedics right from the very beginning. And we can also immediately integrate them into the department, which is important because Delaware is not your typical system. It is unlike any system anywhere in the United States to a certain degree, and that is a very progressive state medically. If you want to practice this, it's also not a very easy state to work in, as the paramedics will tell you, because it's a difficult line of work. But we are allowed to, we are able to integrate them into the department because they're not in school, Monday through Friday, so we bring them back and they can see how the paramedics function. We haven't had much luck so far with facilitating fire service EMTs, and so we did ask the question why, and because we would hope a school like Good Fellowship, the fire service folks would be dropping on our doorstep. But the fact of the matter is, the amount of money they're making as EMTs in the fire service, it's just not worth them to come over. I don't think we've had one fire service EMT enter. Well, maybe we've had a couple, but not like you would expect for all the EMTs that are out there. And we'll get into that a little bit more later. And then facilitates, what I mean by facilitates local interest, folks who may not have thought about becoming a paramedic, just the normal folks, they can enter into that program, and it's a really great deal for somebody who wants to be a paramedic and to have a really good profession. One of the challenges we've had in our own department, and I'll preface with this comment, we ask our folks what their challenges were in the department. We ask the paramedics, what do you want to see happen? Because they know they're not on par with a lot of other agencies. And we had a similar issue with the 911 center. We have, most of our dispatchers come from fire service and ambulance service with extensive EMS experience. And we had at least 2, 3 maybe that I know of in our dispatch center that wanted to go to Good Fellowship, but they couldn't do it because it was a salary cut for them. They couldn't afford it. So the average salary for our dispatchers, it was $56,410 when we pay our Good Fellowship folks, while they're in school, $32,000, and it didn't really provide an attractive lateral opportunity for our dispatchers. And I think it's something that's probably easy to fix. Yes, there is a price tag to it, but when we have these openings, we're paying a ton of overtime to cover it. So I think it balances out at the end of the day. But I do think it's something that warrants some attention. And then second year, okay, what I mean by second year recruiting is Delaware Technical. Typically, Delaware Technical and Community College and Chesapeake College, we can hire and we will hire, if they're qualified, second year students that are in the paramedic program. And I like that because they've already invested a year. So if they've invested a year of their own time, they're serious about becoming a paramedic. So we've had really, I think, 3 or 4 here recently. I've just hired from between Delaware Tech and Chesapeake College. And the college-based programs are also historically successful. Challenges for us, like for Delaware Tech and Chesapeake, is everybody wants them. Newcastle wants them, Sussex wants them, and Chesapeake. So we're all competing for those students. The other challenge for us is we don't do the initial screening, but I think Delaware Tech is sensitive to that, and they kind of let folks know what the employment requirements are for the various counties. And I sit on the board up there too, so we're able to we have a really good relationship with them. The only thing we really haven't done is the more what I call enhanced recruiting, and we've all seen the police TV commercials and some of the other commercials when they're making it look really, really exciting. That costs a lot of money, and then of course advertising in national trade journals. And interestingly enough, it was a National Trade Journal advertisement that Sussex County put in, I think a long, long time ago, that attracted two of our paramedics actually from New York. They responded to the Sussex County ad, but ended up working for us downrange. So I never did thank Sussex for that. I'll have to do that before I retire. And yeah, I think you have mixed levels of response to those. But if they're crafted properly, and someone's really serious about wanting to practice as a paramedic, they would pay attention to that. I think probably more so than the commercials. So retention, it remains a challenge for us, and we did ask, and as commissioners know, that's why we're focusing on this tonight. So here's the deal. For our Emergency Communications Division, I know most of you had an opportunity to go down there and watch them work, and I can only liken their job to an air traffic controller when they're at a full court press. There's a lot of responsibility in that 911 center. They are first responders. This Levy Court endorsed that concept, which is an emerging trend around the country. And all of us that have been first responders, who are first responders, will agree with this. They're the first on the scene and the last to leave. If you think about it, the dispatchers, they give life-saving instructions every single day. They save lives every single day, and it is stressful. Every once in a while they'll ask me to listen to a tape, and it could be somebody's dying declaration or, a suicide or something that gets heard over the line. It plays on your brain over so many years, and so we're concerned about the welfare of our dispatchers as well, their mental health, but it does have an emotional impact. It is stressful, and I think I've covered all those points. The Emergency Medical Services Division is no different than really the dispatchers, that we do add in the physical demands, and it is academically challenging. They're constantly in recertification motion in Delaware, the paramedics, and they do these things called clinical comps for low volume, high risk procedures. They're constantly rehearsing for things that they don't do often. They're constantly recertifying in the various aspects of medical and traumatic care. It's a continuous loop of education, and they do this. It's not on duty. They come in for that. And then, of course, the paramedics also have to deal with the daily life and death decisions, and also the mental and emotional fatigue that goes along with that. And again, it wears on you over the years. You don't see it, but it sneaks up on you. So when we do have retention issues, and what I mean by that is we have staff reductions, it results in excess hours work for the paramedics. And I constantly get on my phone, mandatory hold. That means someone who was supposed to get off at 6 at night or 8 in the morning is going to have to stay another 10 or 12, 14 hours, whatever the case may be. That's a 24-hour shift. Someone can't go home. We do this all the time. Every single week I get these texts come through on my phone, and it's cringeful, quite frankly. But it does result in excess hours work, which means that it could involve quality assurance issues. I mean, really, at the 23rd hour, if you've been busy the whole time, and then it can result in decreased morale and also fatigue. So all those things are one of the issues that we have. So what's the cure? So the singular challenge expressed by our medics and our 911 staff is retirement. And the current retirement is not a public safety standard. It's just plain not. I was asked to produce data. I did. I can produce it out of every state in this country that says that what we're currently doing is not a public safety standard. And you have to understand that we're a third service agency in a government. Some of the agencies are combined with fire departments and other things like that. But we're not meeting the standard. If we get someone, we've hired a lot of very young people at 21 years old. 30 years is a long time to do this job, And you don't see police officers doing it. You don't see military folks do it, even the ones that are not going to be involved as a rifleman or whatever. And so it's just not a standard. It's not a standard anywhere. Most public agencies, public safety agencies, are 2025. So the other thing is challenging for our paramedics, and in Delaware, the fire service has paid EMTs now, and almost all. There used to be volunteer. I think they're all paid EMTs now because the volume's so high and volunteerism is down. The EMTs actually do have a better option in the state of Delaware. Their average salary, I think, is $20 or so, and I think our start is around $24. They can opt in, and Camden, Wyoming has already done this, Camden, Wyoming Fire Company, and there's enough front load, but they can enter into the state pension plan and get a 20-year retirement at half pay. And one of our paramedics was talking about, and that's her direct quote, stressful to think about. And that's just one paramedic, but they're all thinking the same thing, that it's stressful to think about, that you could be an EMT, and EMT is actually a better deal in some cases for staff. So what does it look like around us? So the comparative pension data, and there's a whole mess of, there's a litany of 20 and 25-year examples that I distributed, but right near us, Newcastle County, the paramedics and dispatchers, that's not 30 years, that's supposed to be 25 years. That's a typo. I thought we had nailed that, but that's actually a typo. Newcastle County paramedics and dispatchers have a 25-year retirement. We have a 30-year. Sussex County has a 25-year. And then, of course, the fire service, EMTs, they have different iterations that they can become involved with the state. I know the one that I know of is Camden, is a 20-year retirement, and they've opted into doing that. And so the other area that we've looked at was revised promotional opportunities. You know, our folks that come to us in public safety, a lot of them, well, number one, you have to test into it. You just can't walk into this job. And not everybody that comes to us is successful. So we get very smart and intelligent people, some of them with advanced degrees, enter into our employment, and they're energetic, and they want a career. And if we're not challenged, if we don't challenge them, they're going to leave. They're going to go somewhere else. And we've seen evidence of that in the past too. But what happens is they become disillusioned, and they'll bridge to another profession or go into nursing. Some have gone into nursing, some have gone into other departments, and they will move on. We have proposed, and the commissioners have that, I think, a revised pay scale for incremental promotions, and I think that falls within our current pay scale. We haven't gotten the new pay study hasn't come out yet, but this will allow for more promotions within the existing scale. So as you reach certain points, and there's a little bit more to it than that, but I think it exceeds our discussion tonight. That's a topic in and of itself alone. And really what you're looking at was extracted from other public safety agencies on how they manage the challenge of not everybody's, is going to end up into administration. Some folks will want to remain in the street, but we want to be able to recognize that, but we also want to be able to promote them along the way. And it seems to work for the other public safety agencies that do that. Salaries, we haven't seen the results of the pay study, but that's always something that we're interested in making sure we're competitive with other agencies. So this is what it looks like right now in the state of Delaware. Sussex County starts at 56.5, and they don't have a bonus. We start at 51.75. We give bonuses up to $5,000. And Newcastle's starting salary is 51.866, and they have bonuses about $10,000. And so education. So another area that came to our attention that was somewhat challenging for the paramedics is we recognize and reward if a person is employed by us and they get an associate's degree or a bachelor's, they get a 2%. If they get an associate's, they get a 2%. They get a bachelor's, they get a 2%. But if they already have it when they come to us, we don't give them anything. So it's possible that two people could be on two different pay continuums. And I think that probably would be an easy fix too, is just recognize the degrees when they come to us. And if someone gets it when they're employed by us, well, that's great, right? I mean, that's what we want. Education's the best investment you can make in people. So if they get an associate's degree or a bachelor's, that's certainly a good thing. And one of the challenges that we have is that public safety is not for everyone. We're not the only agency out there that's struggling for personnel. And I think I have been asked about police agencies that have 20-year retirements that are struggling for personnel. And you know what they told me? I did ask somebody about that. And my brother was a prior police chief, and I was asking him too. And the comment was, see how many people you get if you put it up to 30 into police agencies. They're not going to do it. See what you get if you put a military pension up to 30 and see how many people go into it. You're not going to do it. The fire service is the same way. If it's just and so it's the same thought process for the paramedics and the EMTs in the state of Delaware. They're just not going to do it. But it's a challenging job. It's not for everybody. There's daily challenges. We've discussed the enormous responsibilities, and there's no room for error. You make a mistake, somebody basically dies or could die or have a bad outcome. Salaries, benefits, pension, and retirement, that's the core of the challenge for our responders, and it remains a challenge for our responders. I mean, the reality of it is our folks are looking over the fence. It's what I would do. It's what I did when I was a field responder. And they know that they're not in par with the other agencies, and I think that I think everybody would appreciate a good, maybe not under our current financial structure. There's probably iterations of possibilities we have not considered. No one's ever really, I think, looked at those. I'm not a financial person. I manage a budget. But I know that Sussex County is able to pull it off because the paramedics work, like our paramedics, basically a 42-hour work week. We do the very same thing. That's how they validated their 25-year pension, because if you add it up at the end of the day, it'll come to 25 years instead of 30. And maybe our county could look at that. But I do think there's other iterations of possibilities. I understand in the state of Maryland, I had someone call me from Maryland, I think, is it Caroline County? I think Caroline County is going to a 25-year and 50. I think they're currently 25 and 40 years right now. And I think they said that they were going to be going from remaining at 25, but they would just bring the percentage up to 50% of the salary after the 25 years, which they seem to be happy with. And I think, I forget the other counties. There were several counties over there that were addressing the same issue with their first responders. It's a choice to be made, and it's not. I don't feel like we're asking for anything that's, or we're just asking for a good look at the situation. And I don't think I think it's on par with what's appropriate for our first responders. They work really, really hard. If you guys and folks that have had an opportunity to ride with them or sit in the 911 center, you see it, you see what they do, and you know what they're capable of. And but they do it, every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it. I feel very strongly that these are issues that need to be addressed, or we're going to continue to have recruitment and retention problems because we're not going to be able to compete. We're not. It's just not going to happen. I think that's close to the. Commissioner Angel, you had asked about the population. So I think the census comes out every 10 years. So that's what it looked like. Our system started in 1990 with the legislation, the enabling legislation for the statewide paramedic system, and 1990 is, we were authorized to staff at 34. I can tell you that we had maybe 3 people working for us in 1990. And we didn't have that many in 1991 either, to be honest with you, because again, we had to get everybody trained and get them out there. But as you get to 2000 and above, those figures are pretty accurate. But that's what it looked like. And that's pretty much it. Be happy to entertain any questions.
Colin, of course, I've always said I'm in favor of 25-year.
Mm-hmm.
Always said that. And but the question is, how do you get there? I mean, you're talking about a big chunk of money. Now, I know that DSP, in order for them to have a 20 or 25-year pension, they're paying 7%.
Correct.
How their pay towards that. Now, we're paying 3%.
So yes, 3%, I believe.
It ranges, yeah. Depending on how much time you got on. When you came on, it could be 0, 1, or 3.
So for
5.
So for a brand
5.
So it was 5.
It can go up to 5%, yes, sir.
So, I mean,
for starting paramedics, it would seem that question would probably be easier. For the other ones, maybe a few years on, I think an actuarial would have to figure out some level of buyback. And we have folks here in this room tonight that can retire very shortly. So their interest is more proprietary. It's just making sure that good things happen for the department.
So would you support, say, a 20 or 25-year pension, but then you get additional 2% or 1% or 2% per year on top of that for every year you stay after that?
Absolutely.
I mean,
yeah, I think
the state police, when I first went to the 20-year retirement, it was taboo for you to stay on past the 20 years. Now just about everybody does.
They do.
And they stay as long as they can stay until they get up to that age of 55. And but if they come on 21 at 41, they could retire. But then every year they stay on past that, they get an additional amount towards their pension. And
yeah, I believe that. I mean, that's a fair assessment of what I would imagine. Now, the folks that would be in a bind, or maybe someone that's got 12, 15 years with the department, depending what their age is, because they can go 20 at 55 in the county. That's something. Yeah, that's something. But it's a lot of our folks coming in now are very young. They're like I was when I started, 21, and a long time ago, right? But I can tell you, it's I was fortunate. I was, after 25 years or so, I was able to move into administrative roles. I can tell you, if I was on the street, well, I wouldn't be here right now. It just wouldn't happen. I stop at these calls now and again. They haul around a lot of stuff, a lot heavier than it was when I was in the street. And
there's a reason why most of departments say you're 55, you're done. There's a reason for that. I mean, wear and tear on the body.
Injury remains a problem. We have folks out.
And you and I both know that we don't function as good now at our age as we did when we were 40. So.
That is true. They try to remind me of that every once in a while. But no, I mean, you're right. You have to be quick thinking in the street, and it's not. It's a young person's game for the most part. I hate to call it that, but it really is. And most of the folks that I know that were even police officers. I think it came up in. I don't know who I was talking to, but I don't know too many police officers that go back and become a police officer again when they retire. And it was very rare. I haven't found a metric to really evaluate that, but maybe if they're going to be a police chief somewhere or something like that. But they just don't. They may go. My brother, for example, chaired the criminal justice program in Georgetown when he retired as police chief, and he definitely wasn't going back to police work. And so it's right. And so I think it's a very right thing to consider for our paramedics and our dispatchers, and they're both very stressful jobs, and I would take a real deep look into how Sussex County is doing this, because it's, I think it's something that might be able to be, again, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a finance person, I just manage a budget. It's like a checkbook. And, but I think there are things that we haven't looked at to make this, a lot of times, in the past, now we can't do it because of this, but I haven't really heard that, well, we might be able to do it. We have to consider this, this, and this. So I think we need to consider those thises, and thises to see if there's a manner possible that we can make our department a little more attractive to folks so they enter in the field. It's difficult enough now. And I know everybody across the country are experiencing challenges with hiring. I mean, you don't have to be in public safety. Everybody's experiencing those challenges. But when you're in a specialized field like public safety, it's just all the worse, because you just can't go out and hire somebody and bring them in. And we just can't, we could say, well, let's bring in folks from out of state. And we've had some great candidates come in from out of state, but we have also had some that have been very unsuccessful because their system is so much more aggressive than some of the other states. And the prior medical director and I'm talking about the paramedics a lot. I don't mean to disrespect the dispatchers. 'Cause I grew up as a paramedic, and so I only know the examples that I can state firsthand. But our prior medical director was fond of saying that our paramedics get 4 years of medical school in 2 years. They're that advanced in the state. And if you watch them and you see what they're capable of in the street, and our dispatchers, they're a nationally accredited center. And for EMD, I think they were 46th in the world, if I got that right, to be accredited. They're EFD accredited, and they've had the course in police dispatch. They're cross-trained with the Delaware State Police so they can do each other's jobs. And that doesn't come easy. It's not like the old days, which a lot of folks that used to apply to us thought, where you push a button and make an entry into a log. You've seen the dispatch center, it looks like a starship. It literally looks like a starship. And, it's a lot of multitasking, and each one of them have different assignments. And if there's a mistake made or you lose track of somebody, there could be a bad outcome on the street. So they're both just really stressful. And again, we've had a problem on the state side. I mean, they take care of their own, but they've had horrible time trying to hire dispatchers.
Recom is down here now instead of.
Right, Newcastle County is operating out of our 911 service, what we call Recom, and they lost, I think, some dispatchers just because of that. They didn't want to do the travel down to Kent County. So, but it's a public safety thing, and the reality of it is, at the end of the day, if we're not on point, paramedics, fire service, police, or whoever it is, the dispatchers, they're not on point, someone's going to be underserved. And if they're underserved, that means there's going to be a bad outcome. There's either going to be a reduction in going to be a mortality issue or a morbidity issue at the end of the day, or there's going to be a bad event that the police aren't able to respond to quick enough. And that's when it'll, and I get it. No one really thinks about us till they need to dial 911. It's 2:30 in the morning, something's going on, they dial 911. It's when you're most vulnerable. And our folks deal with individuals when they're at their most vulnerable. And it's a challenging job, I can assure you. So I could have provided just tons of data, to support this, but I think the message that we want to send is we're probably doing some things that are good, but they can be improved upon. And some of them, to me, they look like they're probably all cringing, but it looks easy to fix to me. Simple things like degree recognition and rank structuring, rearranging that so that we can provide adequate recognition to all of our folks. We took care of the 911 end of that a couple years ago. And then the other, the issue with cross-training our dispatchers over into, we lost 2 great candidates, 2 that I know of. I think maybe 3, but 2 that I know of offhand that didn't cross over into the paramedic program because they couldn't afford it. yet we're paying tons of overtime. I would just see that as an easy fix, because the chances of them being successful in the program is like 110%. I had that kind of faith in them, and they're our employees, and we denied them. I feel like we kind of denied them. I mean, they could have done it, they just wouldn't be able to live in their lifestyle.
I mean, you're preaching to the choir to me, but, and I don't think any of the other commissioners here want to see, you know, our paramedics and our call taker dispatchers, you know, working any longer than what they have to. And the other thing too is the retention that you talked about and recruiting. We've got to do something, because we're seeing what we've got is not working optimum. So I don't think there's any one thing that's going to fix it, but there's a combination of a lot of different things. And I think that's something that, and every one of them, just about every one of them has a price tag attached to it.
Yeah.
So, you know, probably this year, I don't know how many of you live in Kent County. A lot of you live in Maryland, Newcastle, and probably Sussex too, but this year you're probably going to see a tax increase. And so the ones that live in Kent County will be paying more for tax increase anyhow.
Yeah.
And so, and what this would probably involve is, you know, we don't have a great big bundle of money that we can spend on things that, you know, we aren't prepared for. So I think this is something that takes a lot of preparation. And I know it's something that has to be, the union has to be part of. And so, I mean, I'm in favor, personally, myself, I'm in favor of looking into what we can do to, you know, make life easier for for all your medics and dispatchers, and then see how we can fit it into, you know, our pocketbook, what it's going to mean. And like I said, I think it's going to be a lot of different things.
I can assure you that the dispatchers and the paramedics, I know I've spoken to the union president, and they support all of what we're trying to do here. They see it as a very important matter, and you know, for us in administration, it'll allow us to fill these holes. I really worry about these long hours at the paramedics.
I do too.
I have in the past, and we've got things in place to try to make that easy. But the reality of it is, no matter where you're at, 24-hour shift is a 24-hour shift. And it's not like being at home. Someone could say, well, yeah, you can sleep. Well, I'll tell you, this system looks a lot different than it did 30 years ago. And there's not much sleep out there for the paramedics. They can get banged out without a moment's notice at any time of the day and night, and be 10 charts down trying to catch up. It is not easy. And you know, if the paramedics are busy, the dispatchers are busy. And so it remains a challenge. But I do think that it will be a problem if we don't look at it.
I agree. I totally agree.
It will emerge as a more of a greater problem than what it is right now. When I have paramedics saying, you know, it's easier for me to be an EMT because I can retire in 20 years, get half my salary. That's amazing. I mean, that is just amazing for me as a paramedic. For all those years to think that someone would do that. Nothing. The EMTs are professional. They're nationally registered too, just like me and the rest of the group here. But there is a difference. And, you know, usually it's an escalation. You start as an EMT and you have to become a paramedic. We can't even foster that with the fire service. They're getting a better deal. I asked the fire service, several of them that would know and was integrated into that system. And they said, well, they're not going to do it. I said, why not? I said, because they're getting a better deal with the fire service. I mean, right now, Camden, Wyoming, literally, you can retire in 20 years at half pay. And we can't touch that. We can't touch it.
You know, you were talking about all the data that you could bring in, but I only needed to see 2 points up here tonight. That we have the lowest starting pay, and that we have the worst retirement system.
Yeah.
So, you know, you tweak either one of them, right? So any rational person with these skills We're gonna look at it and go, no.
Yeah.
They're gonna prioritize. I'd rather go here, I'd rather go there, and the bottom of that list is Kent County.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you gotta fix it.
And Delaware is a small state, and people communicate, and the folks in the school.
It is when Kent County's at the bottom, but if we do everything we want to, in a perfect world, with Kent County up top, the other two counties say, hey, look what's happening, everybody's going to Kent County, we gotta fix our system, put us, so it's a never-ending cycle to try to fix the problem.
Okay.
So, I mean, we all agree that it comes down to throwing money at it. Are all three counties making that push to the state when the split in paramedic funding comes up? Has retention and recruitment ever been mentioned?
It's mentioned by us in the field. I sit on several,
Yeah, in the field, but not when you testify to our representatives and senators who are considering whether or not to change the.
You have a senator who's trying to increase that now.
I know, they're trying to increase it, so when it comes to testify, then you and your counterparts need to be in Dover and say, hey, here's the problem we're facing.
We've done that over the years, and
Occasions, yeah.
and we've over the years we've shot down every single time we've done it. And you know, there was one time of changing the way the formula, the way we were funded, to take it out of the grant program, and I forget what the program was now, and put it into that, but that fell short. You know, you leave there so optimistic when you get the responses from the legislators, and then you just never hear from them anymore.
Colin, do we know how much Newcastle and Sussex pay in towards their pension?
I do not. I could get that. I'm sure there's a, you know, it's a, unless any of my staff knows and they want to step up.
You got all these people out here with cell phones, you got to figure it out by now.
How much is it, Rick?
5 for Newcastle.
5 for Newcastle. Not sure for Sussex.
5 across the board, or is it graduated depending on how many years of service, because they've increased it over the years?
I believe it's a straight 5.
Is it?
But they're just for every hour worked, isn't it? Every minute that they're on the clock, it goes towards our pension, not capped out at 40.
I don't believe it includes overtime.
Most don't.
No, I know that the state of Delaware has, I don't know whether they still do it, but overtime was rolled into the pension formula, but I don't know whether they still do that or not, but I don't know if a county government does that. I know that contribution is typically a little bit higher than what most would have with a longer retirement, but I think that's tolerable to our staff. They would understand that, the way the pension works. But I think we have a good opportunity to start something really, really good, and move forward with it and remedy some of these issues. And yes, you're correct that there'll always be competition among the counties. I can handle the competition among the counties if it's like whose service do you really want to work at. I mean, I can manage that really, really easy, because I think we provide good things for our folks in the county. We try to keep it real in Kent County, but it's tough to compete on parity levels when the other counties are so much better in what they're offering. It's just tough to compete. The folks in the school, they communicate, they know what's going on. The schools, the classes for Delaware Tech they're not like your regular classes where you have 30, 40, 50 people. You're lucky if you got 15 people in that class. And it's probably pretty much the same with Chesapeake too, but and we're fighting over these people. And I think good fellowship has been a blessing to us, that we can send paramedics up here. We've got their students out there now working, and they're outstanding paramedics. That's a relationship that I clearly want to see continue on, as well as their relationship with with Delaware Tech and Chesapeake. But the competition for those folks are pretty stiff. We don't have any competition with good fellowship because we're paying them all. We're hiring from the beginning, And that's what makes them different than the other two colleges. If we don't up our game a little bit, I'm sorry for the expression, but we're going to be challenged. I mean, I hear the drums beating from a distance, and
Chief, I know that this is something we've been discussing for probably the last 3 months, I think, or real close to it. I come back and discuss this with the commissioners. Short discussions. I know Alan and I spoke today. Of course, I'm kind of biased. I've either worked with most of you guys or still do work with some of you guys, so I'm kind of biased to it. I think we got some of the best service that's possible. I firmly, in my heart, believe that 100%. I would trust any of them to work on my family. And, you know, I've always said that public safety is almost like an insurance. Nobody wants to pay it. You don't think a whole lot about it until you have to have it. And I think that's where the disconnect a lot of times is because until they have to use it, they don't understand what it means.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I can tell you that we have. I mean, I'm not painting a totally gloomy picture. The paramedics and dispatchers that we have in this country, I would put them up against anybody. And I would be comfortable with any one of our paramedics or our dispatchers managing a call from my house, managing me, or whoever. I would be comfortable with that. Any single one of them, they are that good. But the conditions of which they work, they're providing advanced medicine in the field under crazy conditions. I mean, it could be 100 degrees in somebody's attic, or you could be in the middle of the night, you're trying to pop a line into somebody in a twisted vehicle. It's not easy. And then when you have multiple units and multiple agency responses, think of the dispatch center, what's happening back there. They're like the air traffic controllers. And I like to compare them to the air traffic controllers because you don't see it, right. But if you have two planes come together, where do you go? You go right back to the air traffic controllers, and the same thing would happen at the 911 center. So it's a very stressful job at that end too.
Chief, also, just so that there isn't any confusion, of course, naturally we would need to get some numbers from Ms. Susan. There probably would be more than likely definitely a buy-in portion, some kind of buy-in from the employees as well.
I think that what would have to happen is I believe it would be an actuarial.
Yeah, Alan Quayle's here.
An actuarial, and you would actually determine what that level of buy-in to keep the pension fund solvent. Again, I think the easiest thing is for our newer folks, the ones that have just started in the last year or two. I think they're the ones that would, if we move forward tonight, we committed to move forward in some fashion tonight, they would probably benefit the greatest. Obviously, others would. I think in any system that I've heard when there's been a change in pension plans, it's not, well, we're just giving it to you. There's a buy-in. You have to buy into it, and I think
I just wanted to make. I mean, I think most of us support it. I can't speak for all the commissioners, but I think the question comes back to what Commissioner Pepper said earlier: the path to get there, and I think it's.
Well, and we're fortunate, and I would warm my heart to hear Caroline mention, because I served as a county administrator next door for 7 years, and when I started there, the county's pension fund was less than 70% funded. And I left in 2018, and a couple of years ago, I got a call from the county administrator, who's a friend of mine, and the pension fund was over 100% funded. And while we're sitting here, I texted the HR director there, who's a friend, to say, so what's changing with the public safety pension plan? But I can talk to you individually or as a group and tell you, these are the steps we took, and there were some painful steps, and there were times early on when the employees weren't happy because there had to be some restructuring of pension benefits. The employee contribution increased, but the goal was to get a fully funded pension system to be able to expand the benefit. It took 12 years for them because I started 12 years ago, and if they're talking about changing retirement lengths, it's because they got the pension fund strong enough to be able to expand the benefit. But it's not a sprint, it's a marathon to build that kind of resource up. And our pension fund is less than 80% funded, and the expected return on investment of 7.25% is too high. It should be 6.75%. So the real numbers are actually worse than that. Doesn't have to be a doom and gloom scenario, because Caroline County is way poorer than Kent. It's not even close. And if little old Caroline can do it, I have every confidence that Kent County can do the same thing.
Yeah, well, I appreciate his comments. It's something right must have happened if they're 100%, over there. I would encourage our folks to have a look at Sussex. The way the work schedule works for the paramedics down there, the paramedics' average week is 42 hours a week. It's really more than that. They work so much overtime, but the scheduled overtime is basically comes with 1 full day a month, 2 hours a week, and that's how Sussex pulled it off. I'm not sure exactly how they did it, but when they did the math, the 42 hours, it came to 25 years. And maybe my staff, I don't know if my staff knows specifically how that happened, but it seemed to work for Sussex County, and they do that, I believe, for their dispatchers and the paramedics. They get a 25-year retirement. And my sense is, whatever they did, it wasn't really much of a struggle for them. I know they have a lot of revenue down there.
That's a big thing, too.
Yeah, they have a lot of real estate transfer taxes and all that kind of stuff. And I know we don't have that level of activity here in Kent County, but we also have a lot less paramedics than they do. Our department's smaller, and so I think that probably would factor in there somewhere as well. We may not have what they have, but we're also smaller than what they have, and we may not have as many personnel, but we have less. So I think comparatively, as you move along, it may not be as bad as what it seems. But again, I don't. That's not really my lane that I travel in. I travel in a public safety lane and manage a budget. That folks that do that, the actuarials and accountants and stuff like that, and human resource folks would have to figure out. All I'm asking is that we take a good look at it, and instead of the old formula, the old way of looking at it, well, it just can't be done because it costs too much money. I know that we'll have a whole department full of disappointed folks if we were to settle on that resolve. So we have to look outside the most
Yeah, I'm tickled to death that we're talking about this. And anybody in the audience that thinks the resolution is going to happen tonight, you're in a different world, because it's not. It's going to take a lot of work on a lot of our parts. So I'm going to ask Commissioner Scott, who is in charge of public safety, what do you want to do? I mean,
Commissioner Pepper, I would like to move it forward, and knowing that the 25-year retirement is going to be probably a good bit before it actually gets to the business, because I would want to get with Ms. Susan and run some numbers and look at some different patterns.
Why don't you put a committee together, and I'd be glad to be on the committee, of different folks and money people, personnel people, and look at what's going on around us. And like, we need more discussion with Sussex County for one thing, figure out how he did it. And Newcastle, they just seem to have a bottomless pit of money, and they raise taxes every chance they get to do that. And plus they have all the industry up there, whereas Sussex County has all the tourism at the beaches. So in poor little Kent County, unless we can get Pickering Beach and Kitts Hummock to step up to the plate and be a better tourist destination.
Beach replenishment.
Yeah. Then we just have the 30 cents per 100 and the seniors moving here, buying houses, realty transfer. But why don't we do that? I mean, if it's agreeable to everybody, get some professionals together, the people that are learned in this.
How about the ranking service? Can we at least get that one moved forward?
The what?
The ranking.
Well, yeah, can we afford it? I mean, have you put a dollar amount to it, or? I mean, we need to be able to do that.
Okay, I'll bring it back. I'll get numbers on both things there.
We need to know if we can afford that.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope so. I hope we can afford it. And but I think it's all got to be addressed at once.
Yeah. You want to do everything at once?
Yeah, I think so, because everything plays a part. and what you do here plays a part in what we do over there, and it's not gonna be, like I said, well, it's not gonna be one item to solve this.
I'd kind of rather, if possible, I'd rather do them individually, because you might have a group that likes part of it, but not all of it. And if you do it all together, then you're shooting everything down, or you're approving everything. I think doing it individually gives it more options.
And the bigger the scope, the longer it's gonna take.
Correct.
Because I'm wondering, is there low-hanging fruit here that we could, run some numbers on and get it into the 24 budget?
I'd rather do a little bit of it.
One is a show of faith that we're serious about this, and while we tackle the bigger.
Well, in order to determine that, we're going to have to work with HR.
Correct.
And we're going to have to work with Susan.
Correct.
Budget. And
there is the compensation study that I understand will be delivered shortly. So some of the answers, because if that compensation study, I mean, certainly the public safety wasn't excluded from that analysis. So again, maybe the first step is to get that and then do the budget impact of that, taking a look across the board and see if this can be folded in, or if there's some kind of overlap there. But when we talk about the lower hanging fruit, wage adjustments are usually a lot easier to manage than a pension, because even just doing the analysis on the different parameters of the pension is going to be time consuming and honestly expensive, because you're going to have to pay an actuary to run those numbers. We can do some stuff internally.
And that's big bucks in itself.
Yeah.
So why don't you do that? I mean, it's just a suggestion.
Do them separately or do them together?
I don't really care how you do it, but I think you need some kind of committee to talk about it
I'll have
first.
you a committee in 48 hours, sir.
Excuse me?
I'll have a committee for you in 48 hours.
Okay. All right.
And you're included.
All right.
Thank you.
Hopefully the meeting's over by then.
Yeah.
But I got a question. I also want to thank the paramedics too, because 9 months ago I wouldn't be sitting here because of a heart attack. So I'm very passionate. I come from the medical dental field. So I definitely think that 30 years is too long. I was in the military. Most of the people I knew have retired and gone on to other things. But what I think that we can also work on is with the legislators trying to get something like, we have senior tax credit, an elderly tax credit, we can get a paramedic tax credit while you are still there to help. It reduces your funds, your tax liability. It's a small token, but it adds up over time. And I think that's one of the things that we haven't discussed, so I'll bring that up to Bob too. But there's so much talent in this room and skill level. One of the things that I always look at, I'm an outside the box thinker, as you all know, that your skills with the medical field changing the way it is today and the elderly coming to Delaware and the population changing, how many would like to be a physician's assistant or qualify for that to continue their career but at a different level, a different stress level? That's something that hasn't even been thought of yet. So, as I said, there's other things I think that we could also help look at and get the colleges in tune with and work with it that would make life easier for you when you do retire. So, with that said, I'm going to give you a standing ovation because I wouldn't be here. And I thank you for what you've done.
Alan, you're talking about you not being here. Back in the early part of December, my mother, her 87-year-old mother, had a medical incident. And she's very critical of all medical people because she's a retired emergency room nurse. And she has veins that are hard to put a port in or whatever, and an IV in. And she was so impressed that the paramedic that came to assist her was able to insert that IV in a moving vehicle on the way to the hospital. She says, I've had nurses that can't do that just standing on the floor next to the bed. And so she was really appreciative. And so I'm just happy that we've got so many people here tonight that I could pass that on. Because like I said, she is extremely critical of all medical people. And after 30 some years as a nurse. So So in turn, I'm very appreciative of that also, so. But, so, have we got a plan? Okay, and, so, you know, folks, I want to give you hope, but I don't want you to think it's going to happen tomorrow, because it's not. But in the meantime, don't retire. We can't do without you. I mean, we need every one of you. So, and we appreciate that, and hopefully we can come to some kind of an agreement here, or some kind of plan that lets you know that. So, but again, I've never seen this kind of a turnout for any of our departments for any issue. So this is impressive. And I appreciate that. I know all the commissioners here do as well. So, you know, it's good to see all of your faces together like this as a, you know, as a united group. So thank you. Thank you. And so I don't want this to be something that drags out forever. So hopefully we can get this committee together and start looking at ways we can make things happen for you. At least work on making them happen anyhow. So, but Colin, you got anything else?
Well, you know, I'd thank the commissioners for their consideration of these very real concerns for our dispatchers and our paramedics. It's been a concern for some time, and this amount of traction we've not achieved in the past. So I can tell you for myself, I'm very pleased, and I'm pretty sure I speak for all of our staff back there that they're pleased as well. We look forward to how, you know, the information rolls out of the committee forum and moving forward with some good things. Again, they're the best in the nation.
I totally agree.
Absolute best in the nation.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
So. All right. Any commissioners? Bob, this is your committee. I'm sorry to step on your toes here.
You're doing fine. No, I think, you know, we've spoke a couple times, like I said, over the last couple months, and, you know, knowing that, you know, it's a 50-50 shot. There hasn't been any empty window promises other than the fact of that, you know, we're going to try to see what we can do to make things happen. And I think, you know, by doing that, I think is the least that we can do to show the respect and appreciation to them.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Any other commissioners? Anything?
Come on, put me in, coach.
I have a loony next to me. Now, I've had the privilege, or not such the privilege, to use the paramedics for myself over time. So I know the value you all bring, and I understand about, you know, the retirement, because I don't know that I could do your job as long as what's required right now. And I certainly support every effort on my side for all of you out there, because I really think very highly of your whole organization.
Well, the only thing I'll say is, a former air traffic controller, my job was pretty easy to compare to what I saw that morning when I came to the 911 center, and I'm very much looking forward to my ride, hopefully sometime this month or the beginning of April.
Good.
We'll take good care of you.
So,
well, he pointed at me. So, so a lot of what we talked about here tonight was how many hours you put in, and so you've been sitting here for 3.5 hours watching this, and so that's a testament to how important this is to you, and I get that. So anything that they come up with, I'm in favor of. Right? I'm okay with moving Kent County up to the top, because at the end of the day, this and the treatment plan are the two most important things we do, right? So it impacts every citizen in the county, and it's life and death, and bad outcomes or good outcomes. And so I appreciate you, because as I drive around the city and see you guys going down the street, lights flashing, I know, you know, it's on the line, and I know you train for it. I know it's stressful. I appreciate everything you do.
anybody else?
I agree with what everybody has said. I mean,
If you guys could, just for, I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
To have the paramedics come to families' houses, and I couldn't do your job. Don't ask me to.
Wouldn't.
So for those of you that don't know, the gentleman next to us is, to my right here, is actually the new county administrator, Mr. Decker. He's been with us all of 5 days. He made that clear a couple times today. So,
Feels longer.
but I'd like to just give him a, good warm welcome when you see him around, guys.
And we've already blamed him for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Folks, thank you. Thank you. And I guarantee we'll be in touch. So, be safe out there.
You know what? Number two? Yep. We don't want that failing. All right, wow. Night all.
Well, lunch is okay. If we were meeting for breakfast at 6 a.m., I might say, we want to push that back a minute. I think I'm going to be good for lunch.
Hey, I told,
I told like a rolling start to the day kind of guy.
Thanks, big part number one, too.
Yeah.
You good?
I think. Have you done 13 yet?
So you guys have leadership tomorrow?
No.
Yes. Just 4-H is on there. 4-H has a date, and Polytech has